History tells us that the inclination of the human to do evil is thwarted or pushed back against those who do good. And I'm keeping these terms simple because, again, I'm talking to young people for the most part. And this is important because we all have a role to play in representing whatever force that we're representing. I was at a place downtown where I have people who see me as one of the senior leaders. And a man walked in and he began to throw things around in this place. And so the young lady came and got me. And I call her a young lady, but she was my age, roughly, maybe a couple years younger. And another man that was standing with me and said he's throwing things around. And so I show up and he's flailing. And I said, "You got to go." And he wouldn't leave the front door. And so I repositioned myself, and he noticed I repositioned myself because I was in just the mood just to wait for him to do something for me to justify making sure he would have a slow recovery. I was in that mood, and the young man that was with me said, "Just go, I got this," and we just have to leave his presence. And in this case, he was more mature than me. But what I was not going to let happen was I was not going to let this man verbally, which is mental for me, mental, physical, or spiritually abuse the young lady that represented our organization. Wasn't going to happen. One way or the other. The challenge in our community is, and when I say our community, I'm talking about in society, is having enough people who stand for something, not only to talk about it, but to be outside of the fray of media being about it, changing the culture from the inside to generate a different culture on the outside. Because surely it's not about getting into an altercation with someone who doesn't have your values. It's really about demonstrating the values and getting them to see that they really need to consider a different set of values. Good people have to stand. It's easy to talk about standing. It's quite another thing to realize that there needs to be a cohesive joining with other people empowered in other areas of society, and then praying the prayer of agreement together, which is, I'm throwing some Christianese in there, but it's true. Or let me say it without the Christianese. Coming together and setting policy and culture within the community, backing each other up. politicians backing up the police, backing up the judges, backing up the business owners, backing up the sanitation workers, backing up, where we're all standing together and saying and doing the right things, even when you're being railed against from the world or the world system or those who practice evil, let alone those who practice wickedness. One of the prevailing problems is that people who practice wickedness know the kingdom of God. They know the rules, they know the regulations, they know how to use it, but they manipulate it for their own good. They're powerful and they're leaders. And they're gaining riches, and they don't necessarily want to give up that power. Which is when we need people who stand for righteousness to go ham. Using the same principles that we're talking about, which means that they're collaborating with other people who are of righteous nature, and they're standing against those who now these are the ones in high places. Those of you who read the Bible understand that. I'm trying to put some flesh on it. These high places, these are guys that lead in our community politically, in business, socially, militarily, in ministry, and I think 2 or 3 other categories. For some odd reason, I always forget a category here and there. Read the ISIS papers. I keep. So there are people who are wicked in these high places, but they stand only because good people aren't standing against them. You have the authority to go after them. But until good people actually decide to stand and stop talking about all their victories. And listen, I like the way Dr. Jakes put it. Love them, leave them, hate them. Forget all that. But he put it really good. He goes from 0 to 10. I'm going to quote this for the rest of my life. And people get stuck at 10 because that's when they get the accolades but then if you're really doing something, you go back to 0, which is 11, to get back up to 20. To go back to 0, which is 21, to go to 30. Keep challenging yourself. Keep humbling yourself so that you can become more and more successful in areas where you can have more influence and hopefully bring the right values. Because the higher and higher you go, I understand it becomes harder and harder to maintain those values. Absolute power does corrupt absolutely. But it doesn't mean that you can't get there and not be humble enough to stay there. We need more of you good people with power to stand in the gap for us. We really need you.